Podquester time now. It is Podquester time.
Hello, friends. We're so excited to be talking with Brendan today, the latest member of the jury on Sequester.
Oh, why?
But power. But we appreciate power, and with jury does come a great deal of power. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Tommy. Louis is still out with his, I say eye illness, but that makes it sound kind of like weird and antiquated. But Louis still out, so wishing wellness and goodness to Louis out there. But thank you so much, Tommy, for stepping in on his place. Really, we were just looking for a white guy with facial hair, and we really appreciate that you stepped up.
That's what I'm good. I'm here with those attributes.
Just change your name. Nobody will notice.
Yeah, that's so funny. Oh, Brendan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time. So you've been home 3 months now, and you've known.
It's been a lot to keep secret for 3 months. I've been dying to unpack everything. So I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Yes, good, because we have a ton of questions. And I will also say I have been bugging your brother for months about deets and trying to get spoilers, and he says that he's been just as frustrated.
Yeah, anybody. I have not told him anything. I kept him in the dark. I wanted him to experience it organically because this is such an incredible story. The whole season is so great. And so I the minute I got home, I knew I can't tell him. He's got to experience it the same way that I did, which is, firsthand and or secondhand now, but firsthand through me and firsthand through the show. So
my hope is you told the rest of your family, so it's just Briz.
That's funny.
We love Briz though. But we have so many questions. I feel like, we get a great amount of insight into the challenges. But something that I think that we all wish we had more of, which is I want an entire stream of it, is confessionals. We need to see your mind. There's just not enough time to get every single thought process. And I'm sure it's harder on you because you're watching these new confessionals. Has there been any confessional that's kind of surprised you thus far that you're like, nobody told me that?
Man, trying to think back, I would say just off the top of my head, the confessional that Marcelo, where he's apologizing to me, in date night, he's like, "I'm sorry when you see this." For a lot of people, that was probably that's kind of confusing, but they don't have the reference that me and him, did the mystery date together, and that me and him were, after Katie left, the only, two people that had any seemable connection in my mind, including me, because I didn't know anybody else really on that sort of level. I didn't play any games with them in the minis. And there was, people that were in there that had those connections. I played with, Spencer and Billy and Natalie in that All-Stars mini with you, Suzi. But I was out, before I could even really jump rooms. So that
was a hard one.
Yeah, definitely. It was a tough, I don't want to say it was a tough draw with the connections. I was definitely given a fair amount of connections, but I was still in a sense on my own because I wasn't aware of them at the time. I think another good example of this would be Jay West and Rachel. They didn't even realize that they had played that mini together until after everything was over,
Yeah, I understand. Rachel knew, but Jay West didn't know, and so she thought that he didn't want to play with her. She was like,
I may have gotten that wrong. That's probably what happened. But from my understanding, I was like, wow, these connections that seemingly would play some sort of part in the story, they didn't really hold any weight. And so Marcelo, saying, when you see this, I'm sorry. It was because me and Marcelo were pretty close in that house, but for the reasons we were close, it didn't really line up with the story. So, yeah, I can understand that, and that was a little surprising to me. I was like, "Dang, Marcelo, good on you, man."
Talking about
go ahead.
Talking about the cast, when you walked into that house and you see it's all mini players, did that change any part of your strategy? Like, what were you thinking when you walked in and saw that?
So originally, I'd kind of assumed there's got to be some sort of mix of mini players, because that was where I would have been drawn from. I got into Sequester through the minis. I had watched the live show, but I had never thought about applying until I had actually played a mini. So when I saw a lot of the other mini players, I kind of had a feeling that was going to be the case. But when I saw the group that it was, I was like, wow, this is such an honor. I feel like some of these people are so, well respected. And I was really humbled to be lumped in with that group. It definitely changed the way that I had to think about the game. Like you heard me say in the first episode, I came in, and if it was with a group of strangers, I probably would have acted a little more Fabio. I probably would have acted a little more, hang loose, but I couldn't do that right away. I had to slow play it. I did it with some of the people that I wasn't familiar with, like Natalie. You saw me, oh, is this a dog bed? But with people with Jacob and Muna, people that knew who I was, Marcella, they were not going to let that fly. Brent, another good person, I knew Brent was going to call me out the minute that I started playing that up, and so I had to sort of change my strategy, and it definitely influenced the way that I played my game.
And going back to Marcelo a little bit in this relationship, since I didn't realize that I knew y'all had been on mystery date together, but I didn't realize that y'all were that close in the house. Did it then surprise you that he called you out at the elimination circle then? At the ceremony?
Yeah. So, yeah, it did surprise me, but at the same time, I kind of understood the frame of it, which is he's got to own something to gain or garner some respect from me if I'm going to go out. Now finding out that he voted for Muna when he was supposedly the one behind throwing my name out, that was kind of confusing to me. But at the same time, I understood the idea of gaining social capital and then using that to get your target out and then throwing your vote elsewhere to protect you from the battle match. Because that was a strategy that I employed all season. That's
true. You were sliding by the battle matches. You were matrixing it. Right? This was the battle match that got you. And
yes,
you didn't get pulled into the battle match originally. You got by the battle match pass. I think just the battle pass is what they generally call it. And I appreciate it. Say it. So the battle pass got you. You went in prepared to battle anyway because you thought you were the vote, correct?
Yes. However, there is sort of a moment of decompression when somebody else is picked. You're thinking, all right, I'm in the next round, And so you get this moment. And also, Jacob took, I want to say 5, 6, 7 minutes before he used his advantage. And so I was standing there ready to go back inside. I was loosening my shoes, I was getting ready. And then that happened, and it threw me completely back into this loop of adrenaline. So yeah, I was still very frazzled. I was also confused how he got it. And if you heard me earlier in the season, I had guessed these LOSs have to be in the battle matches of some sort, because they didn't really show up, but we tore that house apart. I searched everywhere. A lot of people were searching a lot, especially in rounds like the killer detective. When Rachel, when it's basically either Rachel guesses this correctly or she's up. It's you have nothing to lose. You can just go look. So moments like that, they didn't really show them, but yeah, there were lots of moments where people were looking. So we kind of started to assume that they had something to do with the battle match. But even then, I was confused. I was like, I don't know what this advantage is. Where would he have gotten this? Like, I think it was the way he phrased it, because he said,
he said luxury row, and so it was like
he said I Sequesterbot paid me a visit and he gave me this.
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, what? Like, what does that mean? So I was really confused.
You're like, is Sequesterbot coming to visit people in their sleep? Like,
yeah, I was
what's
like,
happening?
What? So where's my invitation, right?
If you put your tooth under the pillow, Sequesterbot comes and gives you a little animal pet.
The something that I think is really worth noting, and this is, oh man, I love this about Sequester. This is, and it didn't even work in my favor, but I still love it because it's really what makes the show so riveting and exciting. Is take somebody like me who goes into season 4 with the assumption that you're going to search in the house and you're going to get LOSs, you're going to find advantages, because I've seen that for the past 3 seasons, right? I had my brother Alex hide road flares around my house while he was working from home, and my objective was to go around and find these before the day was over without him noticing that I was looking. And so I like practiced for this before the season, right? But I get there and I play a game designed to stay out of the battle matches. I said, I want to stay out of this as long as I can, because I know I'm good at, this sort of stuff, but I don't want to have to rely on it. So if I can go far, not only am I building up a resume because I'm playing a good social game, I'm playing a good strategic game, but also, it almost puts like a little bit of fear into people, like, oh, I don't want to battle him late into the game, because like I said, I was one of the bigger, more athletic people in the house. However, this season things change because that's Sequester. And so as every round, I'm of the assumption that my stock is rising. In reality, my stock was falling because every round somebody was coming back into the game with 2/3 or 1/3 of a shot at an advantage that I was unaware of. Now, could my social connections have been way better to the point where they felt comfortable to tell me? Yes, and we saw that. So that's a lack on my social game. But at the same time, I just love the fact that, I was so dead set, boxed in my own head that, staying out of the battle matches is the way to go. When in reality, had I maybe tested my luck early, maybe I come back in with an advantage and I tear the whole house up. You never know. Or at least the knowledge, there's so many variables, and that's the nature of Sequester. That's what I love about it. Is it's literally ever changing. There's no like one format or structure. I thought that was so cool, even though it didn't really work in my favor. But yeah.
I don't know if you know, but this is something from the Lost Interviews TM. That's what I'm calling the Podquester interviews.
Rest in peace. Those are fun.
But Shireen actually had sewn a secret pocket in case she found an LOS that was thick enough to hide the little lights and stuff that she brought with her. So you were not the only one who was prepping for this major component of the game, the LOS, only for Audrey to be, and all of Sequester, the whole production team, to be the shady motherfuckers we know they are.
Yeah,
and
take that out. I'm not surprised by that. Shireen's smart. She's been through this twice on a much, broader scale. So to hear that Shireen was plotting and scheming for the LOS beforehand, that doesn't shock me. That doesn't shock me.
I like this LOS idea though. What if you just escalate to you hide, Briz is hiding your food around the house, and it's sorry, Brendan, if you can't find it, you're not.
I know, right? The stakes are high.
Really raised it.
So you were talking about your social game, and you lost a lot when you lost Katie. As far as one of the very few relationships that you had solidly outside of the game. Did you know that Katie was as close to Spencer as she was as well?
I did not. But in my head, it didn't matter because Katie was one of those people that I could wink, wink, nod, nod. We're good. I turn the corner. You only get 10 minutes or 15 minutes around sometimes. So, to have somebody in the house that you can 100% say, I don't need to have a conversation with you. I can spend 3 seconds talking to you and we can get on the same page. That is immeasurably beneficial to everybody's game if you can have that. So Katie going out of the house was a detriment to my game, 100%. The edit did not show it, but that she was a very, very big piece of my game. You know, she saved me that first round, and there wasn't a whole lot shown, but that was like a big moment for me and her. That was like a big, like, Katie, are we gonna play this game together? Like, we've had this relationship outside of the game. Like, are you gonna help me and give me safety? And obviously the next round we just couldn't make it work, and it didn't end up happening. But you know, I love Katie. Katie's a great friend of mine. She's a great friend of Alex's. She was like family to us. So yeah, Katie was tough to lose.
Yeah, I think it was tough for all of us to see Katie go. She's killer Katie. So to take out someone that savage that early was. Did you feel like, oh shit, this game is, because usually it's a 20-person game. What we saw here was so much smaller. Did you feel like it was fast paced?
The pressure's on right away. And the first time that I knew the pressure was on was when I saw Jay West, the only guy who had played Sequester before, like really feeling the heat, like early. And, you know, like he really didn't have much reason to, but, you know, he felt like, oh, I wasn't like a mini guy. I'm just like the returning player. I'm the easy one. So when Jay West started to like panic a little bit, I was like, oh, like we're past the socializing part. Like we are in this now, you know? And for me, I was always ready to jump into like, okay, let's play the game. But you never want to be that dude. And especially somebody in my position who's so young and, you know, I would say inherently a little more impulsive than some of the rest of the people that were there just by inexperience of life. And yeah, so, you know, to see Jay West sort of shaking in his boots a little bit early on, I was like, okay, like we're getting into this, you know? And then, you know, people start coming up to you. It's a whole development, but yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
You speak of having Katie, someone that it seems like you could never really get on the same page with was Natalie in the house. You had this like reluctant truce at times, but you both, like, even we see it in date night where you're both calling each other out, saying how, you know, this is just formalities at this point.
Yeah.
But who, you know, and you can talk about Natalie, and then also like who else was on your radar, like who else was on your target list?
So I you know, spoken about this before. I was always on side with Spencer. I wanted Spencer, you know, like in because I wanted Spencer to keep battling, to keep winning. Is what I wanted. I wanted to vote him in every time and have him kick everybody's butt and then vote him out at the end. That was my plan because I knew he wouldn't pick me. And so going through, you know, going through the game, though, I realized, like, if Spencer goes, it's not the worst thing. So, you know, because at that point he had called me out, and I was like, he's a little bit of a loose cannon. So if he calls me out, you know, continues to and wants me out and stuff, voting him in and letting him go wouldn't be the worst thing. Another person that was on my radar, I mean, I spoke about it a little bit in the last episode. It's Muna, just because, I mean, she's a warrior. Like she's badass in every sense of the word. And you know, we knew that when we were there. She was a warrior while we were there. And so I wanted her out, but I didn't want her out that early. I wanted her out in front of me. I wanted to get her out at like 5, maybe 6. Somewhere down the line, that was going to be like the last, you know, the last big vine of the jungle I needed to cut through to get my way to the end. And then obviously Jacob is, you know, I mean, he cut me before I could cut him. That's what happened. I called him out 2 rounds before. I tried to get him and Spencer in, because I felt like my butt was on the hot seat, and he took that to heart, and he came back with a vengeance. I should have tried to finish the job instead of getting fixated on Spencer. Jacob, Muna, Natalie, just for the fact that she had called me out, and it's never good to have somebody in the house that's after you, but Yeah, I'd say Jacob, Mona, Spencer, Natalie. Those were really like my 4 that I was looking out for. In a weird way, though, I was also I wanted to work with Natalie because I felt like if she, I felt like if she could get over her like innate hatred for me, that me, her, and Josh could do damage in this game.
You
I
said
was ready
just a small like bump to get over, just the
if you can overlook how much you dislike me personally, then we can do good things in this game, right?
It's funny Natalie, to say it, but at the same time, that's how the games work, right? You have to do that.
It's much harder. It's
hard.
Easier said than done. It is very hard in practice to be sitting across from somebody for it's very tough. It's very tough. And especially when you're living with people, you can't be fake 8 in the morning when you're exhausted. It's hard, man. Like it's tough.
Yeah,
so
to put on the face.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the biggest thing, because I think a lot of people in the community watch the show in the same light that they would watch a mini. And you can't. They're completely different animals. Like the minis are 6 hours. You're in the comfort of your own home. You got a glass of water. You got food. You got snacks. You can use the bathroom whenever you want. Basically, like it's a whole different animal when you're out there and you're under the pressure. This might be your one shot, you know, and you're in game mode not for 6 hours, but for 6 days, for 7 days, 8 days, 9 days, 10 days, maybe. Like, and you know, for other shows, it goes even longer. So the difference between a mini and the live show is incomprehensible. And please take it from somebody who's played a handful of minis. I played 4 or 5 of them. It's very different. It's very different. And so a lot of people, you know, will say, oh, I would have, you know, done this, done that. Like, good example, this would be Jacob. A lot of people said, why wouldn't he put Billy in after you just had a screaming match with him? It's like he just cut, you know, one of his good friends on the outside world. Like Muna is like a good friend of his. And now you're asking him to do that again to another friend, you know? It's like in that moment, it makes sense, but emotionally the toll is so grand, and you've been living with these people and building bonds with them for a week. It's a lot harder said than done. So I have a very big respect for people that have pulled savage moves like Jacob, man. He is a beast out there.
I think you can acknowledge, like, in a lot of these things, is like if you take emotions out of it, like, yeah, 100%, this is the game move, 100%, but you can't separate the emotion. It's such a gamble in any game of like playing with the emotional side plus doing the right strategic move.
And I honestly think that's why we love these shows and love these games so much, is because it's who can keep on the logical path the furthest, who is not going to let the emotion shroud them. And that's really, you know, the challenge of this game is, can you get through this without letting your emotions get the best of you? And man, it's tough. I thought I could do it. It's really tough, man. It's fun.
Or you can teach your emotions, but I don't know how. Like, I know people are like, I play emotionally, and I'm like, how? Like, you know, it seems very difficult.
Some people thrive off emotion, and you know, I wish I was one of those people. I think I would do really bad if I relied solely on my emotions, sort of like we saw on date night. Like, I was very fixated on getting Spencer back in there because one, he'd throw my name out, and 2, I didn't want to go in. Like,
and I think too.
Why do you think that? You mentioned this earlier that you knew Spencer wasn't going to pick you, and you just mentioned it again. Why don't you think Spencer would have picked you?
So, there was a secret scene on Patreon. If you're not a patron, go sign up. You can watch it. And basically what it is it's I'm trying to press Spencer and see who he's going to pick for the battle match if he is pulled. And you can sort of see, you know, him give me a soft threat. He's like, you better not vote for me. He's like, that's all I'll say. And so I don't vote for him, but he doesn't even reveal my vote, and he doesn't even consider dragging me, even when he is the one voted out. So for me, it was sort of like, okay, like he can talk big to me, but he's not actually going to ever pull the trigger on me, because I'm probably the person who looks physically the most similar to him in the house. And I think that was what he was basing his picks on at the time.
Okay, so you're like okay. So the fact that he didn't follow through on his threat basically made him an easy target for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think going in, Spencer had a little bit of an assumption that the challenges would be more physical, like we've seen in past seasons. I didn't know that all the challenges were particularly gender neutral until it was like brought up when Brent was screaming it. And so that was like a wake up call for me. I was like, I thought I was gonna be like maybe bungee cord dragging another two people like we saw in last season. I had no idea. So, yeah, it was definitely a wake up call, and I think that we all learned that lesson while we were there. So, I mean, me especially, I got my butt kicked by Muna, and it was a true and false. It was a true and false challenge,
Yeah, that was y'all were close though. That was not a blowout by any means.
Yeah.
It was close. You went into it thinking that Muna had it in the bag a little bit, right? We saw you later being like, "This is what Muna does."
Yeah, I was a little concerned. I was like, "Wow, Muna is, Muna's talented. She's smart. She knows how." I mean, that was one thing I was like, "Damn, doesn't she do this for a living? Like, doesn't she memorize things and like recite them back like quickly? Isn't that like her job?" So I was concerned. You saw me screaming out facts, trying to throw her off. I think in reality, it only let her comprehend 2 times as much. I think her right side and her left side. I think her right side and her left side were both computing. One was hearing what I was saying, and the other was reading. And so she ended up edging me out. But yeah, nothing but respect for that. She's great.
The balls had me nervous though. There was one blue ball I was watching during, and I'm like, it might fall. Like, it was right there it was for both of you. I was just like, every time I'd be like, oh man, this is just nerve wracking for me.
I thought I started screaming because I thought that it was gonna come down to the balls. I was like, it doesn't matter how I'm gonna pull 15 sticks, and guess what? I won't get any balls dropped. All I need is to have her drop 1. And my original plan was to like actually fail a bunch of them in hopes that she maybe fails one, and there's like not a lot of options and she screws up. But that was like a whole nother thing, and I ended up. I mean, it kind of happened because I did end up getting a couple wrong in a row, but yeah, not to the degree I wanted it to be.
Going back to date night, it definitely. And when I was watching, I'm like, this twist is not. Does not rely on Brendan's strengths here. This twist is like I feel like you're someone that you get all the information from everyone you absorb. Well, you get one narrative and then you're going off that narrative. Was there a part of you thought that narrative wasn't going in, like the Spencer narrative? Did you ever consider other avenues? Like what was your thought process in this twist?
Tommy, you're 100% right. This was not my twist. I'm not good at this twist. I didn't play well, and it's evident in the fact that I really thought my plan was probably going to work until the last date. When Billy was like, "Hey, everybody's saying your name." And I was like, "No way." So, and then even then it was sort of like a facade, people were saying my name, but they weren't really serious about it. I was still panicking, but yeah, Tommy, I'm not good at this twist, man. Like, I told,
how do you be good at this twist is like the hard part, right?
Yeah, it's tough. And especially like you said, Tommy, I'm somebody who likes to stand in the group and have like a sort of fixated control on the flow of the conversation. I don't want to be like overbearing in it, but I want to be somebody who is like, all right, well, let's not go down that avenue. Let's, direct the thought this way. And so that was tough. I knew that going in, that was going to be my hardest round because having people get 3 minutes without me in the conversation, that does not bode well for me. And I knew that going in, especially having to fend off everything that I did the round before, because that was a whole ordeal with like Natalie and that was a whole thing. So going into that next round, I was scared, and Yeah, I knew that the 3-minute conversations wouldn't bode well for me. I just don't thrive when I'm not in a group conversation. I think when people get a chance to talk behind my back, they can put the pieces together. Because I gotta say, there's like I would say somebody like Billy at this point was playing the game that I really wanted to be playing. Like she, really had everybody feeling like they were good with everybody, whereas I was just talking about having everybody feeling good with me, So I'm probably at that point my mist had worn off is the way I would put it. I'd say early on though it was it was an effect, but yeah, by then it had worn off. And
I think like in general, anyone that was kind of going under the radar or like I feel like this is the twist where it's hard for them to not be looked at. Like you hear your name come up, you hear Marcelo's name come up. There's like many people that you didn't hear their name come up until this twist came up in this twist. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah. No, I mean, totally. I'm just, just from like a reflection standpoint, like looking at what I could have done better. Like, yeah, that's definitely one thing.
Well, in fairness, Natalie totally exposed your mist in that one elimination ceremony in front of everybody, where she said that if Katie came back, you would be in a good place. That I think even you said it in the confessional, I can't disagree with her. She's right.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. Up to that point, I was like one of the only people that hadn't had a vote revealed. I still had not spoken a word at an elimination. And so I think that was her way of sort of hey, screw you standing over there. Like you're getting into this too, and good on her. That was smart. That was smart. I think people had me popping up on their radar after that.
Yes. I think that's when the tide started to turn a little bit. Your target started getting bigger as Natalie was like, hey, I've been laying back looking and I got something to tell you. Somebody's in a very good spot. You were my winner pick because of your ability to kind of do what you were saying, where you're not the front runner of the conversation, but you are still going to, your opinion matters to the conversation, right? You're not just sitting in the back and like, guys, should we do that? And everyone's like, yeah, we're doing it. You're like, guys, should we do that? And they're like, oh, should we do that? So I think, I don't know. I love Natalie and I love that move, but it did kind of kill me a little bit. I was like, no, my winner pick. That was the game.
I appreciate you having faith in me. Oh man, it's such a crazy game. It's so unpredictable,
It's so hard to bounce back from moments like that when your game is laid out there, which is kind of what she did. She kind of filleted you a little bit. Right? She was like, let's look at the anatomy of Brendan's game here. He's good with everyone. He's going to have a friend come back. He's not even being picked for things. And everyone, she, what do you think now that you've had this reflection time and you've watched some of the confessionals and have a little more insight, what would your move be if you went back to that situation?
To Natalie or to date night?
Date night. Let's go with date night. If you had come back from the battle match, how would you avoid that target? I
had it all mapped out. One, first of all, the first thing I would have done, because I'm not actually sure if the battle pass would have been re-put in. I'm not sure. I won't speak on that because it hasn't happened yet. But
we don't know yet either.
Yeah. So, if there was an advantage, and I had the opportunity to get it, I would have been ecstatic about that. But the first thing I would have done is just bring up luxury row, in a facade manner. And what I mean by that is I would come out and I'd say, there's only 2 people in this game that don't know what I'm talking about. And all of you better be scared because I'm not going in again. So I would have threatened that I got something, that would have been my first move. And then my second move would have been to come up with a ridiculous alliance that was completely make-believe and call it out and say, if anybody else is working with these two, I was going to say Jacob and Marcelo. I was going to say Jacob and Marcelo came up to me and created a 3-person alliance. I don't know if anybody else had that happen to them, but if they did, and you guys need to look out because they're duping you just like they did with me. And I was gonna completely BS it, and if they got mad and screamed, I was gonna pull a Brett from Big Brother and say, "What? You can't even own it? It's a good move. You can't own it." And I was just gonna he said, she said, and try and stir everything up. But I didn't want to come in and just sort of be like, all right, like, let's play. Like, no, I wanted to scare people. I wanted to make them feel like you do not want to go against me. And you know who did a great job of that was Josh. When Josh came back into the game after that battle match, he told everyone he kicked Jay West's ass up and down the court. He told us that it wasn't even close. He smoked him. We were all like, dang, man, like, who wants to go against Josh now, you know? And, you know, watching it back for the first time, I was like, that was so close. Like, what was that, you know? So,
got you.
yeah, I would have done that exact same thing, honestly, but I couldn't even recognize it when Josh did it. So hopefully that's a testament to how well it would have worked.
Would Jacob have been your target going after all that?
I think going back in, it's tough because Jacob would have been an easy person to come after. You know, it would have been smarter to go to Jacob and say, like, look, you know, what am I gonna gain by getting you out? Am I gonna go next? Am I gonna go the round after that? You know, I probably would have gone after somebody like Marcelo, or because I had felt pretty betrayed by Marcelo also. I don't know, man. It's tough. You know, you really have to think about different things. Like, I don't know what conversations I would have had that round. It's really hard to gauge. And that was something that I really wanted to do, was play round to round, because I didn't really want to get caught up in like numbers and, you know, make a plan and then somebody ends up leaving that was a part of my plan later on, and now I have to revamp it and I wasted a bunch of time. So my like intention, you know, preparing for these rounds was to collect information and then make a decision based on that. I didn't want to come in with a plan. If I ever played again, I would 100% spend the time not playing, formulating a plan and figuring out a way to do my own dirty work. I think that was my biggest problem, was I had people doing my dirty work for me. And watching it back, I really didn't have a lot of reasons to be scared. I thought a lot of people had me more on their radar than they did, and I was playing the game that I wanted to play. So I think I could have took more swings, honestly. Yeah, I would definitely play and like try and get the blood all over my hands.
You sound like Godfrey from BB Can. You're like, I want my hands bloody.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that, yeah, you definitely spoke to getting Muna out as somebody else, getting Muna out as somebody doing your dirty work. And you've talked about a couple of targets and stuff. Did you have any ideas of who you wanted to sit next to at the final two?
I would have really liked to have sat next to either Natalie or Marcelo or Spencer. I was gonna take, like, my ideal final four would have been me, Natalie, Josh, and either Spencer or Marcelo. And like, if Spencer went at 4, cool. If you didn't, and I ended up in 2 with him, cool. I still felt like I could beat him. The only person that I felt like I really would have had to like out with and go head to head with there would have been Josh. And so that was for me. And, you know, that could just be me, you know, being overconfident in my game. You know, I don't know. There was a lot of game left to play when I had left, so I have no idea. But at the time, I felt like, yeah, I was playing a game that could have held its own if I made it to the end.
All right, so I want to ask, like, you're a fan of the game, you know, just, you know, it shows. What was your favorite memory or moment playing this game?
Oh man. Okay, so there are so many like amazing moments. One that was caught on screen that I really enjoyed was when Muna comes back and she tethers me and Marcelo together. And me and Marcelo have our little moment in the laundry room where we're jumping up and down. That was like, in the game, that was like the most fun moment I had. Because think about it. Everybody's screaming at each other. Everybody's yelling at each other. They're like debating who's going to go. And we just see each other and no one's around us. We both just know we're not going home. Like, we're good, you know? And Oh, it was just such like a. We had so much time left too. We were like, we can just do whatever. Like, let's go cause some trouble, you know? Oh, that was so much fun. And I think just like taking moments to celebrate in the game, so important. So important. You're only there once, man. Just go and have fun, you know? And so like to have a moment like that and to see it reflect on television, I was looking forward to that for 3 months, man. That was so fun. That was such a fun moment.
What you think of your music? By the way, you're a fun music.
Dude, I was so surprised the first episode, and then after like 2 days, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. But you know, at first I was like, this is not what I expected, you know, like, but it made sense. It made sense. I loved it. Let me ask you guys, what's been your favorite part of the whole thing so far, up to what we've seen?
Oh my God, that was a lot. I love this challenge. This was one of my favorite battle matches. I've talked a lot on Podquester about how much the challenges mean to me as a person who loves games but could never do physical challenges. So for me, I think seeing the battle matches, you know, I love a women of color like alliance. I gotta get like hype about that. That made me super happy. I love the looks too. I think people have been serving looks. I'm like the only Sequester person in the world who's like, I love everybody's looks. I think people have been appreciating the looks, but I'm like obsessed. I'm like annoyingly obsessed. I miss shopping, you know? We've been in quarantine for so long. In fact, do you want to show your shirt right now on camera? Because I saw it earlier.
This is actually a crew member shirt that I had mailed to me by Matt Van Wagenen, who is the executive producer for Survivor. So this is from Survivor Philippines.
So cool.
Yeah, I tweeted at him, and I tweeted about him a moment from the season, and he really liked the tweet, and he was like, "Hey man, let me get your address," and he sent me the shirt. So
what moment was that? I can't remember.
What'd you say?
Which moment was it? I'm trying to remember that you tweeted at him.
It's the moment of Jonathan Penner, actually. You know, we were just talking about Stacy. It's the moment of Jonathan Penner talking to Lisa, and he's asking her about, you know, the meta of like the audience. He's like, you know, what is the audience going to think when they watch the season? Who is going to be the good guys? Who are they going to be rooting for? He's like, who are going to be the bad guys? She's thinking about it. And he's like, now which side do you want to be on? And she was like it was like an awesome moment. It was like a moment that really had me fall in love with reality TV in general. I was like, wow, you can really use anything to get people on your side. Like that's a beautiful moment in Survivor. If you haven't seen Survivor season 25, go check that out.
I have not, so I will definitely. Yeah, I know you just put me a list of Survivor season. I will say that gives me ratings triggers, though, right? Brent yelling that. What about the ratings? But very different, right? Like the difference between the ratings conversation and this conversation is Brent is like, you need me on the show for the show's rating, whereas he was saying, no, this is going to personally affect you.
Now let me be clear. Brent's intentions were great, all right? And he never once said the word ratings. I will give him that. I think I generalized in a sense in confessional. But yeah, there was a sense of like, you guys should keep me around because the show's going to pop off. And I was like, dude, like, no, like that's not a reason. Like, so yeah, that was funny, but I love Brent. We became very close in the jury. I talk to Brent all the time. And yeah, he's a phenomenal dude. He's also like some of the best television I've ever seen. I've never seen such a polarizing character. I loved watching him. He there were many times where he was talking negatively about me, and I still loved watching him because it was funny. Brent is like such a great television character. I think that he would be. I think other shows would like. They would be so lucky to have him on that.
Yes, the shows might be lucky. The castmates.
Yes, that's a different story.
Now, speaking of Brent talking bad about you, in his exit interview, which is yet to air, we discussed a little bit about the situation between you and Spencer, right? That came up in his episode that he left.
Yes.
And he was so frustrated with you during the episode. He was
I know.
get over it, Brendan. Get over the fact that he said your name. And you just mentioned that like you were talking to Marcelo and y'all were both like, LOL, we're good. So was this like a facade that you were just using so that you could throw your vote on Spencer and Brent and also kind of filibuster it?
Partially that, because up to this point I hadn't really voted somebody and like owned it. You know, I hadn't like voted for somebody and been like, I'm gonna vote for you. So that was part of it, because I knew that I couldn't get dragged in. I was like, good for me. So I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna be vocal about this one so that it's not me. Another part of it is, and this is hard to grasp when you're watching, because it's an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, but the rounds are so short. And so when a round starts, like the way Spencer started it, with bringing somebody from each pair into a group and then saying, I think we should vote Brendan and Marcelo, and then we start arguing and all of them run away, that's very concerning with 10 minutes, because things snowball and there's not a whole lot of time to make them change. Like, if you're going to make something change, you got to have time. You have to have at least an ample amount of time. Now, making the most of your time, that's a different, conversation. But for the most part, you can't flip a vote in the whole house in 30 seconds. So after that argument, I'm looking at the clock like, dang, like I don't have much time, and like I really got to be worried. So part of me being so vocal about Spencer was I knew other people would be okay with it. And also I didn't want them to like fall back on, oh, well, earlier in the round, we heard this, because it's a lot. It's really short, things can snowball. I think even in minis, we see that, like, a name is thrown out and it's the first name that's thrown out, and then that's the name, And so it's, especially just with everybody running away and me not like having a grasp on what they were going to talk about, it was concerning. I needed a scapegoat. So
and that makes sense. Like, that's definitely a thing of like, once you hear a name, it's easy to keep saying that name, because it's like you're not opening a new wound either. You're just like, the wound was already there. You're just stating it again. You're saying, hey, it already got thrown.
Yes, exactly. And you know why I was so scared of it? Because I did that all the time. So I knew it was possible.
You said not my own consequences of my actions.
No. Out here. Who clocked me?
Well, we need to start wrapping up. Do you have any last questions, Tommy, before we do so?
The only thing I gotta say is thank you, Brendan, for bringing Jabroni to Sequester. I've been saying it myself for a while now in my friend group, and now I'm glad it's getting it's time of day.
Honestly, it's if you want to call somebody like an idiot, don't call him an idiot. Call him a jabroni. It's way funnier.
I had the funniest conversation with my partner, who was 100% sure. Oh my gosh, they're right. Okay. I told my partner that in a group chat, somebody had asked, Sharifa had asked, what does jabroni mean? And Jalen and I were making all these jokes about what a jabroni is. And my partner was like, do you not watch wrestling? Like, they watch wrestling. They're like, you know it from wrestling. And I was like, I've heard it in wrestling. And then I realized, Brendan, you don't watch wrestling. Isn't that correct?
Nah,
do you watch wrestling?
I just know what it is.
Yeah.
So apparently the Rock used it a lot. And there are two different meanings. There's like an old meaning, which is kind of like ham, like a jokester, like jabroni. And then there's the one that was popularized by The Rock to mean, it's very complicated. If you're interested in wrestling, this is the explanation. The Rock used to call people jabroni as a way to carnivalize. There we go. The word jobber, which is somebody who's like a lower wrestler, who would be like a local wrestler that people would wrestler. And then in wrestling, they use a lot of carny talk. So they would call people a jabroni. Yeah. So there, I'm sure a million gifts of The Rock out there saying jabroni too that we can also utilize. It fit really well in this context too. I love that it like fit in this context too. I was like, oh right, but yeah, I was like, Brendan doesn't watch wrestling though, so just a little language lesson from your resident
Yeah, thank you for the research.
MFA student, MFA graduate. That was what I got my degree in, so language. So there we go. Used my degree today, Dad. But I don't. The only other question I have is like, is there a strategic moment that you feel like nobody saw of yours?
I would say honestly the first round. I had conversations with Jay West and Shireen to basically throw Katie in because I knew if Katie was in, she would save me. And that was how confident I was in my relationship with Katie over her relationship with Spencer. Is I knew, like, I just knew, you know, if Katie goes in, I'm going to be safe. That's my ticket to safety this round. And so Katie, you know, Shireen had not been feeling her already. And so they, you know, that's sort of where the narrative went. You know, my conversations with Jay West and Shireen, they probably didn't even matter. But to me, it felt like I streamlined a plan to, like, I'm going to go talk to whoever, you know, is exiled right now, get them to give safety to somebody who doesn't like Katie and get Katie in exile so she can save me. Like, I mapped it out, and it wasn't shown, but, you know, either way it worked out.
Yeah, kind of like Muna and Brent, right? A similar situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Also, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to ask, did you worry at all that was going to expose your relationship too much? Or were you just like, no, this is a relationship that's out there. Let me use it.
I didn't really feel like there was much hiding in it, you know? So, you know, people already knew. So, I think Natalie knew preemptively. She was like, oh, I already know that your brother is, you know, friends with Katie. And I was like, oh, all right. Like, okay. So, yeah, there wasn't much hiding.
Riz screwing us all again. I dragged him in when there's a War II. I'll drag him again.
No,
not the drag.
Not the winners at War II drag. No.
Tommy having drag flashbacks from Winners at War II as well.
Shout out Brizard. I was that was the other that was another moment that I obviously it was like was never he didn't play a part in the story. He was not there, but you know, I sure talked about my brother in confessional being my connection to Katie, and I assumed she did too. So that was another thing I was like a little bit anticipating. It was like, I know Katie because my brother, you know, and then having her be like, I know Brendan because of Brendan's brother, you know. I was anticipating that, but I'm, you know, overall glad it didn't make the edit. It didn't need to. It wasn't necessary.
Yeah, but we do all love Brizard. My greatest rival, my greatest friend. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us, Brendan. We really appreciate you taking the time and walking us through this game.
I just want to say I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, it's been a lot of fun. I always enjoy talking to both of you guys. I'm glad to consider you guys my friend. So what were you going to say, Susie?
I know we've already gone over, I think, 15 to 20 minutes over most people, so he probably will have to cut some stuff. But that brings up the question, is there anybody who, now that you're watching it, you're like, oh shit, they were playing a way different game than what I was saying?
110% Josh was my biggest question mark. And I noted this in confessional. I said, I can't put my finger on Josh because Josh he's a really good player when it comes to keeping his intentions close to his chest. A lot of people get jumpy and they want to start telling people their plans because I want to start planting the seed that I am a good player in case I make it to the end. Josh was very patient. Josh knew what he needed to do. He was like somebody who I thought his head was in the clouds the entire season. And now I'm seeing him in confessional and I'm wildly impressed. So Josh is somebody that very, very much impressed me. I am, from a viewer perspective, I'd say Josh was probably my favorite person on the season.
You are a member of the Josh Mosh.
I am. I'm a Josh
You have
fan.
to come up with a different name. I'm sorry, Louis.
Yeah,
You
I
did a great
know who
job
came up with that.
saying Josh was a great player, but Josh Mosh is not the best stand name.
I will fight for Louis' honor. We are sticking to Josh Mosh.
That's right.
What are we Brendan fans though? We never came up with the names. Are we the top knots? That's what I'm going.
The Jabrones, maybe, or the Jabronis.
Oh, the Jabronis.
All the Jabronis.
But it's an insult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I feel like
Jabroni crowd.
Top knot, top bun.
We'll do
as
a poll on Podquester.
Listen, a fool isn't always a bad thing. We could all be the fool. You know, sometimes we all need to be the fool.
That's true. That's true. But okay. I know we didn't actually end up getting to all of our questions, which is funny. But the most important ones. We got to the most important ones.
Cool.
There was a question about charade that I think that we didn't quite get to. But
about the best. Are you the best sequester charades player of all time?
Yeah, I am. Apparently, the edit shows it. I mean.
Thank you so much. Oh yeah, go ahead. No.
Actually, you know what? Never mind. It doesn't matter. It's just about the charade. So
no, we have a cliffhanger. Oh no.
He's not going to reveal his charades.
Open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Tommy, for sitting in with us, and thanks everyone for watching. And then Podquester music. And